All right, greetings and welcome. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Exactly 1 year ago, we held a stand event here in Las Vegas, and it was a tremendous success and a political game changer that sent the message to the media, the powers that be, and even directly to the President of the United States. There was a grave injustice going on, and that we were to be taken seriously to right this terrible wrong. Now, we had plenty of room to plan an event last year, but we were on extremely short notice this time around. We were just quietly minding our own business when we suddenly received a phone call a week before Friday about a call for action for the guys who were still in jail. Todd Engel, Jerry DeLemus, and Greg Burleson. And we decided that we were up for the challenge to throw another event. Stand 2, No Man Left Behind. Thanks, Larry. So it seemed like a great idea at the time, but we became a little overwhelmed. We reached out to Roger Stone. He wanted to be there and talk about the Hammonds. We had him committed at first, but then we ran into some internal problems. We struggled to gain some public support from the families, and the lawyers weren't sure about getting involved. We shuffled speakers and hosts and nearly canceled the event a couple of times. And then President Donald Trump jumped in and pardoned the Hammonds. Now this, of course, is wonderful news, but in our little circle, that also meant that Roger Stone was going to be out of the mix, and the event was once again cast in doubt. But thanks to Shawna Cox and her team and all of their hard work and dedication, we find ourselves gathered here once again. We could not have done this without her, and we need a big thank you to her and everyone for being here. Now, we got a really good crowd here, and so I don't think we have any issues, but in case there are any differences, I hope we can put them all aside today, as we are all here for a much greater purpose. Whether you are a rancher, or a reporter, a patriot, politician, provocateur, saboteur, or a secret undercover federal informant, I hope we can all agree that it's wrong to put innocent people in prison for political purposes.
Yeah.
Right, now this year's event will not be quite like last year, but this is still a cause for attention for our people left behind, an anniversary of the first stand, a celebration for the Hammonds, and also a remembrance for a very important person that could not be here today. Someone that without their involvement in activism, there would not have been an original stand event in the first place. But before we get to that, I want to introduce our host for the afternoon. He is an outstanding activist and a lover of liberty, a husband, father, teacher, marketer, writer, radio host, podcaster, and broadcaster with over 30 years of experience educating the public, fighting injustice, and speaking truth to power. Please welcome Bryan Hyde. I was going to look around and see what he was talking about. That sounded great. Thank you.
I'm going to ask everybody to do one small favor here as we get started, just because I don't want you to end up having to be that guy or that girl. If you have one of these on you, you know what I'm going to ask you to do, right? Just switch it to silent. It's no big deal, but if it goes off in the middle of somebody's presentation or something, this is a very forgiving crowd. I don't think anybody would hold it against you, but still, I'm trying to spare you from some guilt. So today you have the opportunity not only to network and meet some people who share some common interests and hopefully a love of liberty, but you're going to have opportunities to be equal parts inspired and entertained. We really have some amazing presentations. We're going to start with turning some time over here to Pastor Dale Davidson. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him because the more he was telling me about his television career and what he does, the more impressed I was. Pastor Davidson is on 300 different TV stations. Maybe some of you have watched his show, Las Vegas Tonight. He regularly interviews celebrities, but he is here on a very special mission today to cast the spotlight on someone who, if you did not know her, you will know her much better when he is done. Let's give it up for Dale. Thank you.
so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. And Blake, thanks for putting everything together. What a guy. Blake. You hear me okay? Is that all right? Okay, good. As Blake mentioned, it was almost exactly a year ago that we convened the stand, and I was asked to pray at that event, and we prayed for the Bundys, their co-defendants. We prayed for the Hammonds. We prayed for the guys up in Oregon. Do we have a great God or not? So when Larry asked me a week or so ago to speak, I said I'd be honored to do so, and what did he want me to speak about, and how long did he want me to take? And he said, speak about anything you want to talk about and take all the time you need, because Roger Stone won't be here, so there ought to be plenty of time. I know Roger. He would say that's true. Yeah, he would say that's true. It's said that as far as characters in the Bible are concerned, probably the wisest person in the Bible, aside from Christ, of course, is King Solomon. And King Solomon, he was certainly the richest man in the world, and probably the richest in today's dollars as well. And he was a really intelligent guy. And he said, there is a time for everything and a season for everything under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. Some of you will remember, because maybe you're my age, there was a great band called The Byrds who wrote a song in 1965 called Turn, Turn, Turn. It was a beautiful song, and it connected people with that particular phrase, verse in the Bible. Now, there are some questions we can't answer about Lisa Hunt's passing. Lisa, for those of you who don't know, was Larry's wife and partner in everything. Partner in the business, which was television. Partner at home, of course, and a partner in causes. And one of their number one causes was, of course, the Bundys. And doing everything they could to help the families. They put up the money for a home here in Las Vegas. The families visited, and she really turned into be a mom, if you will, to a lot of the wives, a sister to others, a grandmother, and she and Larry were really wonderful when it came to helping the families. So I want to recognize Larry. He always wants to stay behind the scenes, but for those of you who don't know him, Larry Hunt, raise your hand at least, Larry. He's a wonderful man. Now we'll remember Lisa for a lot of different things. We'll remember her radiant smile. She was always smiling. Her terrific laugh, and her affection for all of us, which really showed. The Christian gospel, as you probably know, is a message of hope that's based squarely upon the character, work, and nature of God. The gospel is the story of hope that comes to the earth in the person of Jesus Christ, so we need to hold on to hope, and that's what I want to pray about and talk about today, and that's hope for the future. When a loss like this happens, we often have a lot of questions. We're not sure why it happened, but we need to acknowledge that God is not accountable to us. We may never fully understand in this life until we get to heaven why this took place. But the only clue that I think we can find is in Deuteronomy 29, which says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children. There are some things that will always remain a mystery to us. So we need to depend upon God and His infinite wisdom and justice to work things out for His children. I think that in times like this, the best thing we can do is to call upon God for healing. Now in the book of Romans, in chapter 8, it says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present or the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Amen? Is that true? Yeah. He removes fear from his people. Psalm 23, which probably you're familiar with. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Truth? Amen. Our God's a God of love, and he's a God who can alone grant that peace that passes all understanding. God can heal the brokenhearted. If there's a lesson to be learned from Lisa's passing, it is now's the time to reach out to others. How many times since May 5th, when passed, have we heard people share their wonderful stories about her? They're great pictures, aren't they? Each story centered around how much she cared for others. As I mentioned earlier, providing support of every kind to the American patriots and their families, their co-defendants day in and day out, becoming a symbolic sister and grandma and mom. So let me ask you this today. Are we reaching out to others the way Lisa did? How many people do we brush by day that we're not sure will be around tomorrow? Are we connecting with them in a meaningful way? Now in this busy and hectic and often disconnected world that we live in, wouldn't it be nice to belong to a community that takes care of each other, that does life together, that worships together? Wouldn't it be nice if people were not left out, right? What if each of us whose life was positively impacted by Lisa would resolve to continue the caring for others that she practiced with us? To no longer take anyone for granted, to affirm all people, to tell others how much you care, and to build a genuine community where you grow together, do life together, serve one another, and share one another's burdens. And where each act of kindness is paid forward, right? Paid forward. So every person is appreciated for who they are. Imagine the incredible difference each of us would make in the lives of others if all of us lived each day as if it were our last. Then Lisa would have taught us, each one of us, the most important lesson in life. It's a wonderful ideal to strive for because as you see right along, God's plan for all of us is to love him and to love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he said. That's what it means to be a follower of Christ. Jesus said in Luke 10, "Love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." So where's God during all of this? The amazing thing is that God's been with us all along. You may have heard of the author C.S. Lewis, a great American apologist, English apologist actually. God whispers to us in our well-being, he shouts to us in our pain, right? In Romans 10, we're assured that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And he said in John 14, "Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go now to prepare a place for you." So I can tell you today, based on that assurance, that Lisa's finding her way around her new home in heaven. And in my opinion, she's making a special place for her beloved doggies. Finally, God is extending an invitation to all of us to be connected to Him and to each other. He invites each of us to make a choice. Are we going to put God first in our life and start loving our neighbors as ourselves? Jesus led by example, and He came to do the will of His people. He loved us so much that He laid down His life for us. Now, He did the hard part. All we have to do is acknowledge that He is our Savior, repent of our sins, and accept the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Each of us has to make that decision on our own. No one can do it for you. If you want to know more about my friend Jesus, look me up. It's my favorite subject. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So where's God? At the end of the day, at the end of our life, we'll realize that He's been there all along, during all the times in our lives. Finally back to King Solomon in the Bible and the band, the birds. There's a time for everything, a season for everything under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Lisa loved a good party. I think you know that about her. A gathering of fun-loving people, enjoying good food and good drinks, and good conversation with their good friends. So that's why we're here today. Lisa would want us to have a good time and celebrate her life and our own. So let's go out and enjoy our lives, enjoy each other, and keep warm memories and good thoughts of Lisa. In our minds and in our hearts, we'll pray for comfort for Lisa's family, and we'll come to an understanding that she's in heaven, resting in the love of God. Let us close in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you today for your Son, Jesus, who has loved and cared so much for Lisa, that He went before her and laid down His life for her. Thank you for providing for Lisa during her life and now in eternity. Thank you for the wonderful privilege to know and love her for the time that we did have with her. We also pray for all those here today. Show them your love, bring them blessings beyond all they can possibly hope for or conceive of. In your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
It's an encore. Let's give a round of applause to Pastor Dale. Thank you. What a wonderful tribute to Lisa. Well, we're going to be entertained here for a moment, and what a treat. You know, long before I became friends with Ryan Bundy, I had started to catch on to the idea that the American cowboy holds a very special place in the heart of America. And you look at the cowboy movies that my parents and their parents, had back in their childhood. It's not only a romanticized idea of rugged individualism, but along with that cowboy came the willingness to do the right thing even when it was hard. And if you've ever talked to someone who has actually, punched cows for a living or been a cowpoke, it is not an easy life. They are subjected to severe weather and heartbreak and triumphs and some of the most beautiful scenery that the world has to offer, but it's not work for sissies. So I guess it's fitting that if we were to have a symbol of inspiration in our day, a symbol of defiance, the cowboy would do just fine. Maybe you heard the University of Wyoming this last week, a story broke, that their symbol is the cowboy. But there are some folks on their staff who are saying, we need to do away with that symbol and do something more inclusive. So obviously, the people who aren't so fond of freedom, they caught on to the idea that the cowboy means something to a lot of us. So in interest of that, I'm very excited for our next speaker, performer. He's kind of a little bit of both. I want you to welcome Kenny Hall. Kenny lives in one of the most beautiful places in the entire country. And I'll let him tell you about where that is if he would like to. He also communicates Americana through one of the most incredible traditions, that is cowboy poetry. Nobody can tell a tale like a cowboy with just the right amount of of wit and earthy humor to bring the point home. And of course, when it comes to cowboy music, I'm going to have Kenny explain this too. There's a difference between cowboy music and country and western music. If you didn't know the difference, hang on. He's going to tell us. Let's put our hands together for Kenny Hall.
Right here. First of all, I'd like to thank Shawna for having me, inviting me down to this event. I rode across the valley range. I hadn't seen for years. The trail was all so spoiled and strange. Nearly fetched the tears. I had to let 10 fences down. The fussy lanes ran wrong, and each new line would make me frown on this morning song. Hear 'em stretching of the wire. The urban brand is on the land. I reckon I'll retire, while progress toots its greedy horn, makes its motor buzz. Well, I thanks the Lord I wasn't born no later than I was. It was good to live when all was sod, without no fence or fuss. It belonged in partnership with God, Mother Nature, and with us. Where skylines bound from east to west, room to go and come. I love my fellow man the best, when he was scattered some. Closer and closer crawls the wire. Well, there's hardly plain to step away and call a man a liar. Their house has locks on every door, and their land is in a crate. And these ain't the plains of God no more, they're only real estate. When my old soul hunts range and rest beyond the last divide, plant me in some strip of west that's sunny, lone and wide, and let cattle rub my tombstone round, and let coyotes mourn their kin, and let horses come and paw the mound. But don't you fence it in. Far and farther flings the wire to crowd and pinch another inch. It's all their heart's desire. Well, the world is overstocked with men, and some will see the day when each must keep his little pen, but I'll be far away. While progress toots its greedy horn, makes its motor buzz, Well, I thanks the Lord I wasn't born no later than I was.
I got a poem. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I drove her all right to the shindig that night. Of course, I said it was just for the ride. But it probably bought me some dances, I thought, as I walked with her proudly inside. I paid her way in and I got her hand stamped, and I was ready to go shake a leg. But we were met by some guys with stars in their eyes, for I hung my hat on the peg. One asked, "May I, ma'am?" She offered her hand, so I waved as she went off with him. But as they went away, I thought with a grin, it won't be long till it's my chance. By the wall were some chairs, so I took a seat there. And I marveled as she two-stepped around. Her blonde hair would flow as she danced to and fro, her feet barely touching the ground. An hour slipped by, and I had no chance to try it, seeing hopefuls were lined at the door. But every once in a while, she'd flash me her smile as she waltzed past me out there on the floor. I was just going to go ask when Miss Tucker came past, all 5 foot and built sort of stout and round. She insisted one whirl, and I'll tell you that girl pretty near flung me plumb out of town. I barely recouped when Granny Colberry swooped me up for a varsity hand. Then a schottish with Trish, who was once quite a dish, but all things up someday fall down. It was becoming apparent with her full card I dared even dream of a dance with her. Besides, why would she waste her time on me when I was but one night chauffeur? So, except for one trip to the truck for a bit, I devoted myself to wallflower. I watched 2 flasks abused and 1 fight diffused, and Miss Tucker made cowpunchers cower. It seemed like I sat there for days, and I tried different ways. I could not get close to her at all. Don't know what I expect. I guess that's what you get when you come with a velvet ball. I wish I'd stayed at the ranch. When the band called Last Dance, and I turned to see standing right there beside a whole herd of men doing their best to crowd in that gal with blonde hair. She winked me her charm, and she took hold of my arm, and all them fellers were sure looking sad when she said through the noise, "I'm real sorry, boys, but the last dance I saved for my dad."
It is now our privilege to hear from 3 speakers, and I want to differentiate. You can hear from speakers any old time. You can hear from people who like to speak on subjects like, I don't know, freedom and liberty and, things that matter. What separates these speakers that you're going to hear from this afternoon from a lot of other speakers is there is a world of difference between a cheerleader and a disciple. A cheerleader is good at getting people worked up at a superficial level. A disciple is someone who doesn't just speak the words and doesn't just, bring some excitement. They walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk. And more often than not, a disciple is someone who has suffered for his or her beliefs and for their willingness to be true to those beliefs, especially when it's inconvenient. I'd like you to welcome Adam Kokesh. Adam, I'm going to let you kind of fill in the gaps here on your pedigree. I first saw Adam when he was being arrested on video for dancing at the Jefferson Memorial. And maybe he can explain why this was going on. They weren't being wild or anything, just a group of people softly swaying, but the park police had absolutely no sense of humor, and they arrested them. And that's when I knew, this guy is serious about liberty. he is willing to put himself on the line and to prove a point. And what it proved to me was something is dreadfully out of focus in our country today. And I think Adam has some answers as to how we can put it back in. Please welcome Adam Kokesh.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's a really beautiful introduction, a perfect lead. And I like the way you started it more than how you ended it, because I'm afraid now people are going to expect me to dance. I'm really passionate about freedom of dance. No, obviously that's not it. But thank you for sharing that story, Brian, and of course for Blake for his role in putting this together, and Dale for being a part of this, and especially to Larry for overcoming everything that you have to make this happen. And I really miss seeing how Lisa was so good and taking care of you and supporting you. Anybody who knows you knows without her, you're pretty useless. So thanks for proving our instincts somewhat wrong, bringing this together and bringing everybody together today, Larry. I really appreciate that, and I don't think we can thank him enough. So please, one more time for Larry for making this possible. And it really is an honor to share a platform with Shawna and Ryan, and really everybody in this community who has put something on the line for what they believe in. And as Larry brought me in for Stan last year, it really is an appropriate connection, I think, to make with my background in the civil disobedience that I've done, and thinking about what I do as a kind of civil disobedience activism that's very much in line with this, but it's almost more righteous and somewhat less contrived. Like for me, I go, hey, there's a law I don't like. I'm gonna make a big public stunt out of showing that it's wrong and embarrassing government and hope that we get it to change. Whereas in the story with the Bundys and everything that's come out of this, it's really much more righteously grounded in a very real struggle. None of them set out for the publicity in this. None of them set out to get a movement sparked or to make a bigger point. They just were a part of being victims of this grave injustice and did the right thing. And I hope we can lighten the mood a little bit. I know there are a lot of appropriate things to be heavy and heavy about in light of what we're talking about today. But part of what we're here to do today is to celebrate the partner of the Hammonds. What a beautiful thing that we have come to. That's only half of it, because a lot of people are tempted to give Trump the credit for this. And he deserves his share, because somebody in his position could do the wrong thing and could go the other way with this. But the reason that he was led to do the right thing on this one particular subject was not because Donald Trump woke up one morning and said, I'm going to do the right thing today and I'm going to pardon the Hammonds. I'm going to see what injustice there is in the American West and how America's cowboys are being screwed over and over by the federal government. No. He did it because of all of the work that people like you have done to make this a national issue and to support the Bundys in their fight. So thank you and thank yourselves for making this possible that the Hammonds got pardoned. One of the things growing out of this I'm excited to see is that our own Ryan Bundy, and I say our own, and I use that term, or those words, somewhat overly familiarly convinced, because I'm never going to say that word again, holy crap. But I say our own because there is a sense of community and family around this, about people who understand what this struggle is about and to see that it's continuing, and that Ryan is taking that to the next level, running for governor, is beautiful to see. If anybody here is unfamiliar with this campaign, especially for those of you who are from Nevada who want to help out, please talk to Ryan about his campaign for governor. Let's give him this platform so he can take this message to the next level, shall we? So the theme today, no man left behind. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to celebrate all these victories and for people to forget. And I think that's part of the value of Ryan running for governor as well, to let people know that this legal issue is still not resolved. And I don't think any of us who are really paying attention to, oh yeah, we're going to have one showdown, and then we're going to have one trial, and then everything's going to be hunky-dory, and we're never going to have to worry about the federal government messing with us ever again. No, obviously none of us are that delusional. We know that it is an ongoing struggle, and that we are in this situation here. We have this very beautiful touchstone to invoke, this theme today of no man left behind. Because while I'm very glad, and I don't have any doubt that this community is going to maintain the awareness with these 3 men who are still in jail for as long as it takes. As long as they are in jail, they will be a rallying cry for this cause, as they should be. But I want to turn this maybe to a bigger understanding of the theme as it speaks to me. And I hope that, while I'm not here to give you a rah-rah cheerleader speech, and Brian, thank you for making that distinction, right? I don't have to give a good speech. I can just be the guy who walks the walk and then shows up and takes credit for it later. Cool, all right. But what I want to do with my time with y'all today is try to give you a sense of the greater cause connected to the biggest thing that I possibly can in this beautiful dance forward for humanity that gives you a sense of not anger, not righteous indignation, none of that reactionary emotional state that drives so much of our activism, but a sense of peace in knowing the righteousness of what we are doing, because we can connect it to that great dance forward that is all of humanity. So I come to you as a former government employee. If you couldn't tell from the crayons in my teeth, I was in the United States Marine Corps. Yes, I guess we don't have enough Marines in the room. That joke, yeah. Okay, someone's getting anybody here prior service, prior military? I hate to say prior service, right? Well, I know we got a few. I'm a little surprised. Normally it's more, because a lot of us who have been that part of the violent hand of government are so propelled away from that experience. We realize the evil in saying, I'm going to volunteer to kill for politicians. I'm going to be a part of this machine. And we are compelled by facing the evil often that we confront in that experience to come out of it. And I've probably told this story, too many times. I want to keep it brief today. And some of the people in the room I know have heard it and are probably sick of this. But one of the things that I experienced in Fallujah in 2004, the greatest challenge, tragedy, experience of my time in Iraq, was during the Battle of Fallujah. I was called to drive in a medevac convoy, medical evacuation, to get a Marine to a surgical tent. And this was on a base several miles away, obviously. We didn't have one set up in the city of Fallujah at that point. We were going to Camp Taqadum, a few miles to the south. And we were racing through the barricades, getting onto base, and I saw the corpsman in the Humvee in front of us with the Marine who had been wounded, and it turns out he had been shot through the armpit hole in his flak jacket. And so they were struggling to stop the bleeding in this wound as we were driving like mad and getting into the surgical center. And they couldn't open the tailgate on the vehicle with the Marine on the stretcher in front of me. And because there were these water jugs and ammo cans in the back that were kind of weighing down the mechanism. So I jumped out of my Humvee and I leaned against it, and they were able to undo the latches, and the next thing I know, I'm holding the stretcher, and it's like, well, this isn't my job, but we're all ready for this, okay? And I've got this Marine, he's moaning and groaning, and just, you can see his face is getting pale, and he flails his arm off the side of the stretcher. And I put it back on, and I said, what you have to say in that situation, right? If you're going to say anything at all, which is, hey, we made it, you're going to be okay, it's going to be all right, we got you to the surgical tent, everything's going to be fine. And we go in, we put him down on the operating table, and they yell at us to get out, and we're all okay, we scramble, we get out of the surgical tent. And we're all standing outside, mostly nervously smoking cigarettes. And after a while, the surgeon comes out of the tent, and he throws something on the ground and yells, "Fucking corpsman!" As if to blame the corpsman who were trying to save this Marine's life for the fact that he died because the bullet that had gone through his armpit hole had landed near his spine and severed an artery, and they weren't able to stop the bleeding, and he died from the internal bleeding. And the reason I tell this story now is not just, as it affects me, but that when you go through something like that, when you've experienced that, and, you say no man left behind, it's not a theme anymore. It's something that you go, you really have to consider, everybody who puts their life on the line like that. And it's not just about the 3 men that we have sitting here in jail right now. And again, I've never made this point before, so I apologize, because I really want to make sure that I connect like this deep part of my own personal understanding of what's going on here to this bigger point. And it is something that's very personal to me and very, very delicate. I want to share it with everybody in a way that's meaningful. So bear with me here. If my thoughts are a little disjointed, I apologize. But I think this is an idea that's especially valuable for people like you, for people who care about this. Because when I think about Lance Corporal Frank, who died in Iraq, practically in my arms, who, you know, there was nothing that I could do, I think about wanting to tell that story and wanting other people to gain the benefit from that and gain the knowledge, gain the wisdom that I got from the hardship of my experience. But since then, you know, I've come out and people look at me as very anti-government, like I've been fighting government, you know, like standing up at the Jefferson Monument and dancing. I'm not a pro-dance activist, just to be clear, okay? Just in case anybody was still unclear about that. But, you know, I've loaded a shotgun in civil disobedience. I haven't paid taxes in a long time. I've sworn at police officers when they tried to make a no cursing law in Middleborough, Massachusetts, you know. I've done these things where I stand up to authority, and a lot of people say, oh, Adam, you're so brave. And I'm not. It's not true at all. Courage is great for times of uncertainty, for when you're stupid. When you don't know any better, then you gotta be brave. Then you gotta be able to instantly follow orders without question. But that's not what I do. That's not what makes what I do. And I don't think that makes what Ryan does or Shawna's done or anybody else here as actors. I don't think you're brave. And I want to separate this because calling it courage, it makes it like an intangible thing that you were born with, that you were blessed with, and that's bullshit too. It's something that you claim for yourself and you embrace for yourself and you imbue your life with it. You realize what we have realized, and I hope that I can put my finger on it in a way that is valuable for you to be able to understand this for yourself. And then it's this, there's something bigger to this. I'm not just here as someone who is defected from the government. When people say that I'm brave, they're like, oh, well, you were in the Marines, you volunteered for combat, you must be brave. No, it's because I bought the bullshit, I bought the lies. You know, I believe that we were fighting for freedom in Iraq. I mean, how insane is that in hindsight, right? But when we put our lives on the line for what we believe in, it's because, well, I like to say there's two things that I do that are different. One is I calculate the risk and I calculate the reward in a way that most people don't. People see civil disobedience, they go, you might get arrested, you might get shot by a cop, and the risk just goes, woo, off the scale. They can't comprehend it. Oh my gosh, you might get arrested, your family might not like you, you might be a convicted felon, you might have something on your record, and people just can't quantify that. I've been in jail a few times, I've been in combat, it's like, there are worse costs to pay for a life that is not worth living when you look back and you see that you didn't take those risks. But the other thing that I do differently is I see the reward on the other side, and I know that all of you see that as well. I just have a little bit more confidence in my calculations about risk than most people. Because I see the risk and the reward in the proper perspective, and the reward for standing on the right side of history makes all of the risk look insignificant by comparison. There's no risk that you face in activism, standing up for what is right and standing up for what is just, that costs you more than what you would have to tell your grandkids about this time in human history and what we are going through, and being able to tell them, not, well, I remember that. I watched that happen on television. Wasn't that fun when we stood up to government and established a better world for our children? Versus, no, when I had the opportunity, I did absolutely everything I could in my power to make that happen so that you could grow up on the other side of tyranny.
Here, here.
So there's a divide, there's a big artificial divide that stops us from seeing this, the us versus them, right? And I have to bring this up in light of some of what happened leading up to this event and some of the drama and some of the bullshit. I'm very glad that Blake opened this with the acknowledgement of that and pointing that out very gracefully. Thank you, Blake. And give Blake a round of applause for that specifically. Because all too often, we allow the tactics of division to work. They're effective. How many of you know what COINTELPRO is? I'm a big geek about this subject. I think we're not nearly paranoid enough in some ways. I don't mean in our attitude, but how we look at other things going around us in this movement, in our activism. We're not nearly paranoid enough. COINTELPRO is a 60s and 70s FBI program, portmanteau for counterintelligence program, and it was how they messed with activists in the Black Panther movement and the anti-war movement. All the high-profile assassinations of Black Panther activists were set up by the FBI through COINTELPRO. The only reason they stopped doing this, they got caught, is because some activists broke into an FBI office, stole the documents, and released them to the newspapers. And then there were a bunch of congressional hearings about it. You'd think the people behind this went, oh, geez, you caught us. We're never going to mess with activists again. Or did they find better, more subtle ways of doing it? And I think it's all too easy, especially in the age of the internet, for them to sow division, for them to talk shit about people, for them to infiltrate and just cause divides that make us less effective. And it's really sad. And I think that's why everybody here really deserves a special hand and thank you for everybody who is part of this cause for saying, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm not going to care about that. I'm going to make my judgments based on how I meet people in person. I'm going to look people in the eye. That I'm not going to base my opinion of somebody talking trash on Facebook. And I think there's an important cultural shift in activism in general, across the spectrum. Anybody who's challenging any political authority for any ideological reason, of being much more attuned to this and getting over this. And at some point, we have to render that infiltration ineffective. And we overcome it by being more loving and remembering that everything that we do in activism is grounded in love. And that's really my bigger point about the underlying principles that unite humanity, that are illuminated in this fight for freedom, that are illuminated by the unique struggle of the American cowboy, the icon that represents. Well, I feel like I didn't get to do this at Stand One, so I got to burnish my cowboy credentials being here. I have a cowboy hat in the car, and I was like, look, this is an event where I can wear a cowboy hat inside. I really wish I'd worn it. But I put up some fence. I've dehorned some calves. I've spent more than a few long days on horseback, so I feel like at least I can wear cowboy boots with a suit and not get laughed at. Okay, people, can we all agree on that? All right, thank you. So. The division, if it bleeds, it leads, right? And a lot of what I used to do with my activism was more controversial and more confrontational. And now I feel like I get to unite people, talking about the underlying philosophy, talking about localization of government power with my campaign, which I'm not going to stop here to promote, but much to the chagrin of some people on my team here. But I really just want to make this bigger point, that when you're a uniter, you don't get the headlines the same way. Ryan standing up to the BLM with a gun, that makes headlines. Ryan standing up to the political establishment in a deeper, more meaningful way by putting his name on the ballot, not so much. So there's a big challenge here, and there's a certain piece that you have to accept that it might be a longer road to hoe, taking that more righteous path. But to the bigger point, finally, of no man left behind, I just want everybody to remember that in doing this, there is no us, there is no them. There is only the one family of humanity. When we talk about not leaving anyone behind, it's not just the three who are locked up in jail right now. It's the oppressors, it's the tyrants, it's the human beings who are so beaten down psychologically, so incomplete in their mental health, that they feel the need to visit all these great evils on humanity. So never forget that what we are doing is really moving all, even the lowest parts of humanity forward in this great dance. And no matter how much they try to divide us, they can't stop this. Because what I see in the Bundys and everybody who supported them, in the case with the Hammonds, and so many others who have stood up in civil disobedience or just saying, screw you to the authorities, I'm going to stand up for freedom, I'm going to stand up for myself. I see that beautiful spirit of humanity rising in freedom, and I see it in all of you here today who stand. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here today.
Seriously? No dance? At all? Okay. It's my privilege now to introduce you to Shawna Cox. And I've known Shawna for a while, and one of the things that I will tell you about Shawna is her stance for liberty and her willingness to stand up for other people, as you stood up for the Hammonds, is not something that has just been kind of a part-time hobby. She does it alongside her needlepoint or any other hobby she may do. This is a way of life for Shawna. And part of the reason it's a way of life for her, and I've heard her speak on this many times before, is because she sees divine purpose in what she's doing. And she could tell you better than I could what role that would play in her willingness to stand in times when it's very difficult, inconvenient, or even dangerous. But it really makes a huge difference. And it has, as I've seen through her actions, even the people who are most vigorously trying to smear or persecute or discredit her, she treats them as a prize to be won, more so than some foe to be vanquished. And I respect that so much. Please welcome Shawna Cox.
Wow, that was pretty hard to follow. I really, really appreciate this today. Blake just left the room. I'm totally in awe at the things that he's done. I know that Lisa did tons of stuff. I learned to love her so deeply. We would go to the house and she would be cooking and she would bring these fabulous meals. And I'm telling you, she was an absolute angel. And she took care of Larry like no other. She was absolutely touched my heart. We became really good friends, and I can't appreciate her enough. And I was totally brokenhearted that you knew nothing that she's passed. But here's what I say about everybody who's passed on. You can leave this life, but the fight's not over. So don't think that you're out of it because you're just fighting from the other side. We still need you. The Lord has a purpose. In this life, we have a choice to do right or wrong. And we each have made a covenant with our Father before we came here that we were given gifts and talents, that we have a special mission. Each of you has a special place. I don't have the talent that Kenny has to sing and the way he does poetry. I'm not Adam Kokesh who goes to the military and saves people from being shot. Everybody has their gift. I can't tell you how much love I have learned for people, and especially the Bundys. When I knew Clive for many years, and Ryan, I had met Ryan, and when I went to their house on the Bundy standoff, this was before the Bundy standoff because we didn't really know what was going to happen. I learned to love them so deeply and knew that their hearts were filled, that they were following the Lord's plan. I knew that. And because of that, and because I saw all these righteous things that were happening, that they spoke out and the people came. Good people came. Some of them didn't even know why they were coming. They just knew they were supposed to come. And that was always my question. At the Bundy Ranch, at the standoff in Oregon, I don't know why you call it standoff. It was a demonstration. It was to show the people that you have to wake up. That this is happening to your brothers and sisters. We have to go there and take care of them. We're all family. We need to help one another because God told us that, didn't He? Love everybody and help your neighbor, help your friends, and that's what they were doing. And I would follow them because I knew that their hearts were right, and that it was because of love. There's no hate, no animosity. It was a stand up for the things that we know that are right. Bring this country back to God where it belongs. I have many children. And if I can't teach them anything else but love, that's what I want them to do. We're talking about leaving no man behind. When we were incarcerated. When LaVoy was shot, okay, his purpose was to protect and leave no man behind. That's what he was doing. I knew him for many years. He was defending. When we went to jail, and they released me, only me, do you think I could leave? And leave no man behind? They're like my children. I couldn't leave because I love them. I love their families. They were righteous. Until my dying breath, I would not stand still. Not stop crying out. Not stop fighting for them. Because it was right. That's why. Because they didn't deserve to be there. If it took every day on our knees, if it took every person in America and the whole world on their knees, we will not stop. Because sometimes life is bigger than us. And we can't do it all. We can do something. And we can do anything the Lord tells us to. And He will lead us if we will listen. And that's what I had to learn. What this covenant is I have made with my Father. Where do I fit in? Because I've been challenged of losing my life more than once. The Lord put me in that vehicle because He knew what I would do. And I learned those things because of the experiences He gave me in my life. But I can't stop loving. And as I see people come together and how they stand for the right and they stand for truth, and they came because I would say, why are you here? And they would say, because I felt like I was supposed to be here. Many times. And the Spirit would say to me, oh yes, they're supposed to be here. Because they are. And I knew that. And as we all play out in our separate missions, we all fit together like this beautiful puzzle. Because this is the Lord's plan. It's His fight. It's the fight between good and evil. We can never leave any man behind. Because they are all special to our Father in heaven. They're special to us. They're our brothers and sisters. It's sad to see the infighting that goes on. It hurts my heart. But it doesn't make me stop loving them. It just makes me reach out and try to love them more. And hopefully that they can too feel the love inside, that they can share it with someone else and they can forgive. It sometimes gets really hard when people hurt us. But we have to let the water run off her back. That's a difficult thing. But I just always have wanted to let people know that I would do everything I could. And that's why I stayed in Oregon every day till they were out. First of all, I had to because I was in court, right? But the day I left, and we were acquitted, and the attorneys, I'm telling you, bet me that we were going to lose. They asked me, my own attorney asked me during that last week, what makes you think that you're not going to jail? I said, do you remember the first question I ever asked you? I said, do you believe in God? Yeah, she said. Well, that wasn't the answer for me. I said to her, you and I are going to learn a lot through this job. And so the day she asked me that question as to why I thought I wasn't going to jail, I said, well, you remember that first question I ever asked you? Yeah. I said, well, you are going to learn about God. And I'm going to learn how to become an attorney with the fire hose. I didn't know anything. But He's taught me a lot. And He's taught me tremendous things. And I know that we have a responsibility to save our Constitution. We have a responsibility to our brothers, to across this world, across the nation, because this land right here was a promised land to Abraham. And it's a covenant land. We have that responsibility to protect it. I have been in this fight for 40 plus years. I see what's been happening. The Lord has moved me from place to place. Did I ever think I'd be shot at? No, not in a million years. But I knew their intention was that we would not leave that vehicle. We knew that. But the Lord protected us.
Amen.
We prayed. We knew it was His hand. And I'm telling you that as long as we do what the Lord tells us to do, we aren't leaving any man behind. We will do everything we can because we are on the Lord's errand. We're on the Lord's side. And as long as we stay that way, freedom is only for immoral people. As long as we do our best, and nobody's perfect. I tell every single person, including my children, when you're pointing fingers at someone, you got 3 coming back at you, don't say something because you are not perfect. And nobody's perfect. Only one person was ever perfect. Not a person. Person is a very bad word. Our Savior was the only one perfect, and He showed us how to love. And so I ask you today that you stand, and we stand united, because divided we fall. I'm glad to see you're here, Josh. And I want to thank Kenny for coming over at the last minute. I kept trying to find all of our wonderful cowboy poets and musicians, because we have a great thing in Kanab, Utah, and it's called Western Legends, and we have it every year. This is about our 17th or 18th year, and Kenny's been invited many times, and he absolutely is phenomenal. He's gifted, and we appreciate him, because the true heroes of the West are the cowboys, and they are strong. That's why God picked the Bundy family, because they're strong as nails. I love it. I love it. I grew up around ranchers and cowboys, and they are good, honest, hardworking people. Hardworking was always my number one thing. I don't care if the most important thing I would teach my children is you love God. And the second thing is get up, because you're going to have to work. I raise you till you turn 18. I don't baby you. And when you're as big as I am, you can work as hard as I do. And I believe in hard work, and I believe in loving your neighbor and sharing and making your day and your life worthwhile. That's what sets us apart. We want to make sure that we take care of each other and love one another. And I'm telling you, the world needs that. And there's so many that are reaching, and they don't know what they're missing. And it's such a fitting day to have this on the Sabbath day, because we wanted to talk about the most important thing to me in my heart is the Savior. And however you believe, as long as we believe in God, it's just a different path to get there. And so I love each of the people that have shown up and stood up. And we're so excited about the Hammonds out. We had to go up there. We got back at 4:30 this morning because we wanted to be here with you, and we wanted to celebrate with them. And I have to tell you a short story real quick. I walked into the Hammonds' house. I didn't get there in time because the airplanes kept delaying and whatever. I didn't get there till midnight, and they got in on the plane at about noon the morning before, that morning. So I felt really left out, and I decided I should go to their home. Now, I hadn't even met them before. I didn't know them when we went to stand for them, when we went to do protest. I didn't know them. But I trusted in Evan and Ryan. I didn't know Ryan was going to be there. I knew that if they were doing it, it was the right thing to do, and these were good people. That's all I knew. So we went. A year later, I finally meet Susie Hammond, a wonderful lady. So I went to their home. I'd never met Stephen or Dwight. And when I walked in, Dwight was sitting in a chair. He stood up And he greeted me and he hugged me. I said, I just need that hug. And Susie, sitting on the couch in a group of people, says, Shawna, he doesn't know who you are. I said, I know what you do. And so as I'm hugging her, his son whispers in his ear. And he comes and he grabs me and he hugs me and he said, now I really need a hug. That meant more to me than anything, because I was so happy that they are free. Even if it was through President Trump, which we worked very hard. Through every angle, all of us worked together, right? It was no one person. Everybody can quit patting herself on the back. It was because God helped him see, and he stood when he was asked to, and the president released him, because that was the right thing to do. And we are so grateful that he did it. And we're grateful for the sacrifice of all those who came to protect them, and we're grateful for those that have been released. And we are not leaving until we get the rest of them released, because there are many political prisoners we have been made aware of, and we have a responsibility to change those laws and to bring our country back into the Constitution so that we can enjoy those freedoms and God can reign again. Thank you.
All right, everybody feeling good? Carbs aren't kicking in, nobody's suffering low blood sugar. It's a little warm today, so that's why I'm kind of looking around for eyes that are getting drowsy. All right, Ryan Bundy is who we're going to hear from next. I want to tell you a couple of things I've learned in the time that I've known Ryan Bundy. I met him 13 years ago when I moved to Cedar City. First thing I learned about Ryan Bundy is this is a guy who uses his influence no matter where he is standing. I think the first time I met him, I don't remember what it was some public meeting, and here was this young cowboy who was running for, I don't know, a legislative seat or something. But what I remember is the principles that he represented and the reasons he said he wanted to stand up. And I started seeing him more and more. Apparently I was just running in those circles of people who wanted to see good government operating in its proper role. And Ryan was always there. And I've watched over the years with a sense of wonder and respect as his ability and his influence has just increased exponentially. And I think Ryan would probably one who would agree that as much effort as he's put into it, it's God who has magnified that influence and allowed him to become a voice that speaks with authority. And when you suffer for your beliefs, that gives you an authority that even your worst critics can't take away from you. Because that's a person who has skin in the game. The second thing I take away from my association with Ryan is that Ryan has helped me to see that the very same moral truths for which the founding generation stood, and the same author of liberty, which blessed and preserved their efforts to secure this nation's independence and to create the greatest experiment in freedom that the world has ever seen to date, is still very much a part of the cause of freedom today. Because of Ryan, Ryan and I, we were friends with a group of guys. We called ourselves the Sons of Liberty. Actually, our friend Stephen Pratt told us, "You are my Sons of Liberty," and he says, "You guys need to get ready to carry the torch of liberty ahead." So I had this little challenge coin. I don't remember, one of our fellow Sons of Liberty gave me this. This has stayed in my pocket for the last few years. I carry it with me every day because this is a reminder not only of who I am and what I represent, but it is a reminder that through my association with others who have had this common cause, and we actually created a little support group for liberty out of our Sons of Liberty group. We meet about every other Saturday morning in the early dark hours in a nondescript office building on the bad side of town. I mean, it sounds really, like we were really doing clandestine stuff. But every meeting started and ended with a prayer, and every time we prayed together, we asked God, however you see fit, help us to be an influence for good. Help us to do what you would have us do. And we could feel the purpose distill on us over the months and years that we continue to meet. And ultimately, we saw every one of those members of that little group go on to have their influence increased in their communities and in other ways. Ryan, I think you are probably the most prominent member of that group. Probably not through ways you would have chosen. But we had the privilege of standing there at Bundy Ranch on the morning of April 12th, 2014. And together with our fellow Sons of Liberty, we all received a very clear understanding that God still is interested in the cause of liberty. It is His cause. And I thank Ryan for helping to open my eyes to that. Because of that, I've never been the same person since that day. Not that I've become a super crusader. I checked. I haven't received a cape yet to get out there and carry the fight forward. More importantly, though, I recognize God's hand in the tiniest details of my life. And a lot of it goes back to that morning and the experiences that we had. Please welcome Ryan Bundy.
Thank you, Brian. I actually remember the first time we met too, and it wasn't at a meeting. We met out in the hills, happened to be camping in the same place. He was all armed up, he had his guns on his side. He was really built for war that day. But no, that's when I met him. I want to start out by giving a tribute to Lisa. I did not know her well. Only met her a time or two, but I met her and she was there to support and to help and offering her services. And I've learned much about her, most of her efforts, and the reason I didn't meet her is I was unable to. I was locked away. But I knew that she was there in the background, and I knew that she was supporting us and praying for us, along with so many others. And it's her efforts and the efforts of so many who helped obtain our freedom, and who helped to obtain the freedom for the Hammonds. And so I thank her, and I thank you, Larry. Today, we're focused on those who are still incarcerated. Todd Engel, Greg Burleson, Jerry DeLuna, sorry, I hadn't forgot, seriously haven't. And there's others also in the Oregon case. But I also want to focus on others who are not associated with our case. Because what's taking place inside of these courts and inside of these jails is not just limited to us. But there are many who are being falsely accused and arrested and imprisoned and prosecuted. And it's a terrible thing that's taking place in America. I spent 2 years nearly inside these jails. And I realized through that experience that the rights that our founding fathers supposedly protected and ensured that we would have them, and through the Constitution and the amendments thereto, they're not being afforded us. I was deprived of every right. And I run off and left my Constitution on the table. I feel naked without it. Even if I don't open it up, I just tap it here and gives me comfort. These courts are not affording America their rights. And what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? You know, back to 2014 when they came after us. And it wasn't just then. I mean, they've been attacking us for years and trying to make us succumb to their totalitarian authority. That they wanted to eliminate, you know, local rule and local common custom and culture, and they just ignore all the state laws and our freedom. And they came after us with force to force us into compliance with their rules and their regulations. Regardless of our rights, regardless of our freedom, regardless of our history. And we didn't go out trying to make a name for ourselves, and we didn't go out there to try to make a show. In fact, when they came upon us, we didn't know what to do. Here we had 200 armed agents up there in a big military-style compound, and we were just a little ranching family, and my dad didn't even have a working shotgun. He does have an old 20 gauge, and it doesn't eject the shells, and I'm like, Dad, come on, we've got to get a good, shot. But this is what we were up against. And yet here we are today, and the world knows who we are. And when all of that was going on, when they were attacking us, and we started to see the people that would come, thousands came, and the media started coming, and not just local media, but we started to get media from around the world. We started to get media from China and Russia and Austria and many countries. The question was why are these countries interested in this? Why do they care about a little ranching family in the middle of the desert in Nevada? Why do they care? It's not because they care about us. They don't know us, and that's fine. But they care about freedom. The world is interested in freedom, and America has been the standard of freedom for hundreds of years. And they're interested to see what will America do with freedom. Will it be upheld, or will it be taken down? Will the people continue to enjoy liberty, to choose for themselves how they will act in every given situation, or will they be coerced and subdued under government power? And for a large part, and for many years, our freedom has been being lost. It has been being lost overseas. It's being lost right here in our home, right here in our front yard, not even in our backyard. It's right in our face. And I experienced that going through this trial, going through 2 years of incarceration, wherein, the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, there's more than just the Sixth, but I want to refer to the Sixth. It says, in all criminal prosecutions, that doesn't leave out any, all of them, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the same shall have been committed. Okay? I wasn't afforded a speedy trial. I wasn't afforded a jury of the state. I wasn't afforded a jury, and I wasn't afforded a fair trial. I faced, between Oregon and down here, 23 charges. Just down here, had I been convicted of those charges, the mandatory minimum sentence I would have faced was 101 or something years of incarceration. I had committed no crime. I had done no harm. I had never intended to do any harm. I simply had stood for my right. Government doesn't like it when you stand for your rights. They want to be the master. And so they deprive us of our liberty, incarcerate us. It's been a standard in America that you're innocent until proven guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers. But I wasn't afforded the right, and neither are thousands of others. I was incarcerated for 2 years without any determination of guilt. I wasn't afforded a speedy trial. I want to point out that, again, Amendment 6 here, it says, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial. Why did the Father say that that's something we should enjoy? Enjoyment, something that feels good, right? Something we can look forward to, something that's good for us. I'm going to enjoy this meal because I'm hungry. It's going to fill me up. I'm going to enjoy the right to a speedy trial. Why? Because I have a life to live, and if you're going to accuse me Well, then let's get on with it. Let's get this thing over with. And I want to point out that that right, it doesn't belong to the general public. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the accused. It doesn't belong to Congress. It doesn't belong to the judge. It doesn't belong to the prosecution. It doesn't belong to anybody but the accused. And it's the accused. If somebody accuses you and you say, I want to go to trial right dang now, well then you better have your act together to bring forth the evidence to go to trial. Congress has hijacked that right, and they made the Speedy Trial Act, and they say, oh, well, speedy trial is that if we go to court and go to trial within 70 days of the accusation. Well, 70 days, that's a long time. That's not speedy. That's not speedy at all. I got a life to live. And I'm just going to wait around here. And yet, that right not only was not afforded to me, because we spent nearly 700 days in that jail, but that right is being deprived of many others. I know of one man who spent 10 years in prison, finally got a trial, and guess what? He's innocent. Does he get his 10 years back? No. I know another man who was with me over there in Pahrump. John Michael Edwards was his name. An old man. Well, you know what? He really wasn't any older than my father. He had been there a long time, and he aged more. He spent 8.5 years until he died. He died. He spent a life sentence without any conviction, without any trial. He died in that jail alone without his family, and they without him. And he was only accused of a white-collar crime that they couldn't prove, and they never did get it done. They never did try. It wasn't even anything violent or anything. And yet he spent a life sentence there because he was not afforded his constitutional protected rights. There's another man over there I know, and a good friend. In fact, I was on the phone with him just a few minutes ago because he called. Omar Kazi. And he has a hearing tomorrow here in Las Vegas. But he's been there for nearly 4 years, over 3.5. Also without a trial. Without any determination of guilt, they have taken away 3.5 years of his life. Is that the America you believe you belong to? Where we have these foundational principles that are supposed to be written in stone? Now, of course, we got Buddy and Greg Burleson, Jerry DeLoomis. You know, Jerry DeLoomis, he showed up at the ranch on April 13th, 2014, the day after the supposed standoff. He wasn't even there. And yet now they've sentenced him to like six years, 7.5 years, 68 months, or 7.5 years, 82 months. He wasn't even there. Where's the fair trial? Where's the determination of guilt? Unreasonable doubt. It wasn't even there. And Todd Engel and Greg Burleson, they didn't do anything that the rest of us didn't do. Neither one of them raised a gun. Neither one of them threatened, intimidated. Neither one of them did any harm. I challenge the world to come up with a man who could take the stand and point down and say, Todd Engel, you harmed me. Not one. Where there is no victim, there is no crime.
And the state can't be the victim.
You're right. It's got to be a living soul. And yet Greg Burleson, they convicted him not upon what he did, but upon what he said. Because he got a little flamboyant with his words on a hidden camera from Longbow Productions. And he talked a little smack maybe. But we can't be convicted. Don't we have the freedom of speech? That right? Where's that one? First Amendment somewhere? I've heard of that one before. And yet, they give him 68 years. Where's his victim? Where's the man or woman that can step forward and say that Greg Burleson did him harm? It's not there. Now Todd Engel, we know that he has a sentencing coming up here on Thursday. And we need to be there in his support. And by the way, Omar Qazi has a hearing that same day in the same courthouse, and it would be great if we were there for his support also. But a sentencing is kind of the last stage of the trial.
Todd's is at 9 and his is at 11. Where?
Todd's at 9.
In the federal building.
What courtroom is Todd's in?
I think it's 7C.
7C, and I know Omar's is in 6C, so one level lower. Now, sentencing is an opportunity to bring forth evidences that were left out of the trial, and I know that Todd, I've spoken with him, I've spoken with his attorney Markowitz. That's been a little while since I spoke with Markowitz, but I know that they were preparing and are hopeful that they could bring forth some of these evidences that were left out of their trial, such as all the things that were determined as Brady violations, the Wooten Letter 1, Wooten Letter 2, unfair trial practices, and he's hoping. And we all need to be praying that the judge will have honor and to act in justice to either one, grant him a new trial, but better yet to dismiss the case and not sentence him, but let him go home free on Thursday. Todd believes that will take place. Each of you to pray for that and ask our Father in heaven for that help. Speaking of the Lord, I want to share a few things and a few of my experiences through this incarceration. You know, when we read the scriptures, we read the Bible, we learn that God speaks to man in many ways. And one of those ways is he gives dreams or visions, perhaps. We hear of Joseph of Egypt. You know, he had many dreams, and he was able to interpret dreams. And through his dreams, he was able to see the future a little bit. He didn't always understand it. But then when the time was right, Pharaoh had a dream, and he was able to tell Pharaoh what it meant. I was given several dreams too. While I was at the refuge, I was given a dream, and where I saw myself stepping through a wall, and it was a corridor where I went into. There was no roof, but it was like an open area. And on the right of me, there was a large cage. And in the cage was a big lion, great big lion. And it was up on a pedestal. And the gate was open. And it was going to come down and get me. And so I run to close the gate, but I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't going to get the gate closed. And the lion was going to be upon me. And then I realized I have a bucket of meat. And so I threw it a piece of meat because I couldn't get to the gate in time, and the lion came down and started to eat the meat and was satisfied temporarily. But then I look in front of me and there's a path, and it goes this way and it goes that way, and I notice smaller pens in front of me and to the left of me, and those pens were all open and there was nothing in them. But then I noticed coming down the pathways toward me are other large cats. All these carnivorous cats. And they're hungry. And so I'm concerned for my safety once again, and so I began tossing them meat. And I realized that this meat, it's not just junk, it's not just scraps. I mean, these are good steaks. I'm like, this is something I want to eat. I want some of this. Okay? But I'm giving it out. And they're eating. And they're eating. And then I turn back and the lion, the gate's still not shut. The lion is there and it's finished with this piece of meat and it's coming again. And so I reach into my bucket and now there's a large bone, like the leg bone of a cow or something, and it's broke in two and it's sharp on one side. And I throw that bone to the lion, and the lion takes it in its mouth and it can't bite. And the dream ends there. And I don't know whether the lion's going to be able to crush that bone or whether it's going to choke on it. Now, I had that dream while I was still at the wildlife refuge. And I told my brother about it, and I had no idea what it meant. Okay? It had no meaning to me at that time. But then a few days later, we are ambushed and arrested and hauled to Portland. And they have us in chains, and I walk through the door into the courtroom. And off to the right, up on a pedestal, is this judge. And the dream came back to me. And I realized that the Lord had told me a little bit future would take place. And I said, this meat, this good meat, these steaks, this is the truth and the Constitution and the principles of liberty, and we need to feed it. And so we took that as a task and a chore through our trial. And amongst us prisoners, we said, feed the beast, feed the cats, feed the big cats. And we began to share all that we could, the truth of liberty. And in the end, the jury delivered that bone, and that judge choked on it. And I'll never forget, because that judge was so confident that we were done, so confident that we had been convicted, and the jury brought in their verdict, and they hand it up to the judge, and she receives it, and she sits down, and she opens it, and she does this number. She kind of has to clear her throat, and she's like, oh, alrighty then. And it totally stunned her. I want to tell you about one more dream that I had. This was after I'd been moved down, and I was down here in Pahrump. And in this dream, I had been invited to dinner. And I went to this home, and this man and this woman had a nice table and spread and a decent home, and they invited me, and I started to enjoy the meal. And this man's name was Sam. And Sam was all excited. He was telling me about this milk cow he had bought. And he was all excited to milk this cow and to get milk, and he was talking about all the production he was going to have out of her, the cream and the milk. He was going to have enough to share with his neighbors and his friends, and he was all excited about this. And oh, great, all that sounds good. I was excited for him. But we finished the meal, and after the meal I needed to relieve myself, so I began to go through his house to try to find the restroom, and I opened the door. I ended up going downstairs, and everything was different down there. The basement had been turned into a barn, and it was dark. And there was a center post that was holding up the way to the house, and a few fence panels connected to that a little bit, and it was dark over in the corners, couldn't really see, and I can see, there was kind of an opening where maybe a cow or something can come in and out over that side, and I look over there and I see piles of manure that had been stacked like sandcastles, all perfectly shaped and formed, and I thought, man, that's awful weird. Who would do that to manure? And I take a few steps further, and all of a sudden I hear a beller and a scuffle off to my side, and I kind of jumped, and there was this milk cow. And it was the sorriest looking thing you ever did see. It was poor, it was skinny, its hair starting to slough off because it wasn't healthy enough to maintain a decent hide. Its udder was shriveled up and small, not producing much milk. I couldn't see that it had any food or water. And the worst of it is that its head and its horns were up against a beam, and its horns and head were lashed with numerous lashings of rope tight to that beam so it couldn't move. Couldn't move at all. And then under that cow's nose lay a little white calf. And it didn't look like it had much life in it. Probably wasn't getting the milk it needed. And that cow was mean. She would kick. She was ornery. But I knew that I had to go let that cow go. And I didn't care whose cow it was. And I wasn't going to ask Uncle Sam's permission. Because it was wrong. And Uncle Sam might have had a shit in order, all stacked over there nice in sandcastles. But he was abusing the very thing that would bring productivity. And I didn't know what that dream meant either for a while. I thought that's just kind of a dumb dream. But then I got thinking about it. That America and our Uncle Sam has people penned up all around this country, and they're in the dark. And they might be a little rough. And they might be a little mean. But what he's doing to them is wrong. And they have to be let free. And I'm not saying that those who commit true crime go without punishment or without correction. I'm not saying that they don't go without restitution to make up for the things that they have done wrong. But they need to be nourished. They need to be fed. And they need to have an opportunity to improve. And their children, that white little pure calf, needs to have what it needs. Now, when I got out of jail, I get worried about these men who are still there. And I think about them every day. And I grieve about what's taking place. And I feel obligated. I feel a responsibility for the cause of liberty. For all of us that are out here, and for all of those who are in there. But I ask my Father in heaven, what do I do? How do I help? What do I do? And through inspiration, he told me to run for governor. And I really didn't want to do it. It's an uphill battle, all kinds of scrutiny. But as I told Bryan and the Sons of Liberty when we used to meet, I said, I'm not here just to talk. I'm a man of action. Remember me saying that, Bryan? And I said, if all we're going to do is sit there and talk, then I don't really want to be here. But all of these men are good men of action. And they agreed with me. And so I'm here to do something. I'm not perfect. I'm not mighty. In fact, I know that I am nothing. I have proved that time and time again that I am nothing. I'm not anything more than the dust of the earth. But God has worked through me a time or two, and great things have happened. The miracles that have taken place to bring us out, and now to bring the Hammonds out, all the credit goes to God.
Amen. There you go.
The Spirit of the Lord has been with us. He was with us in 2014, and anyone who was there, I know Bryan was there. Was anyone else there with us in 2014? Could you all attest that the Spirit of the Lord was strong that day? There was an amazing feeling that I don't believe that anybody can deny. It was amazing. So I don't know what to ask you to do. In preparation for today, I kept thinking, what can I do to motivate these, to move these people to action? And I don't know the answer to that. But I ask for you to pray and ask God what you can do. And be sincere about it. And what He gives you to do might be different than what He gives me to do. But I'm here to tell you that there are some eternal principles, and it doesn't matter what religion, what church you belong to. God is God. And He is the same yesterday and today and forever. And the principles of eternity stay true forever. And God intends man to be free. And no man has the right to tell him what to do. And freedom is only limited that we cannot do harm to another man. That we respect their rights to life, liberty, and property. Otherwise, we are free. And our government needs to reflect that. Our laws need to reflect that. And so that's the direction we need to move forward to in all our actions. I guess I don't have much more to say. But I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Now this is the part where my list of the program runs out. But since we have Kenny here, it might not be a bad idea if maybe you were to treat us to a song or a poem. Can we make that happen? You want me to play microphone stand for you? Okay, I'll take a turn.
I was there that morning down there at Virgin River. It was quite awesome. You know, they had a flatbed truck trailer there to the stage, and just to see all the people down there in that meadow is just really nice. I did this song a lot, and I always dedicate it to my ancestors. They're some of the first pioneers to come into Utah, and they got it with a lot of love and hard work and sweat. Larry, he's still here. 40 miles from the nearest wagon road. We cut our lives in the ponderosa pines. We sweated hard to beat the winter snow. Now the cabin's up and we got lots of time. What have you got planned tonight, Diana? Would you consider lying in my arms? Well, I love you more than ever now, Diana. And I'm sure you're the reason I was born. Jim was born the first year we were here. Just look at him. My Lord, he's almost grown. And the baby's in the cradle fast asleep. Just thinking no time he'll be up and gone. What have you got planned tonight, Diana? Would you consider lying in my arms? Well, I love you more than ever now, Diana.
And I'm sure you're the reason I was born. Time sure goes by, doesn't it, Diana? It's been almost 2 years now since you've been gone. And speaking of time, I guess you know that mine's just about up. I'm gonna see you tonight, just a few more breaths, and I'll be home. And by the way, what of you? What have you got planned tonight, Diana? Would you consider lying in my arms? Well, I love you more than ever now, Diana. And I'm sure you're the reason I was born. What have you got planned tonight, Diana? We were talking earlier about hard work, and my dad, he would probably get arrested if some of the stuff he was a little rough on me as a kid. I'm very grateful for I lost him about 10 years ago. This song is called Montana. When I was a kid, the snow would drift high on the barn. Before daylight broke, I'd be out with a bucket on my arm. And the cattle would watch through the darkness, steam in their breasts, and ice in their coats. And the snow beneath my boots would glitter and squeak over bones of a buffalo buried so deep. Montana, my father gave me Montana. No matter where I go, it carries me. When I look inside, I see Montana. He took us up there where he said a man still had a chance. To the alkali flats in the mud of a hard scrabbled ranch. My mother's mouth got thin and hard, and the sage grew up round the edge of the yard. And I learned how to cuss and how to spit like a man. And I learned the way dreams can slip through your hands. Montana, my father gave me Montana. No matter where I go, it carries me. And when I look inside, I see Montana. Summers we'd wade and ditch by the old county road. And the birds would flutter and shriek on the telephone poles. Hear the wind in the cottonwoods, soft and low. We heard the ghost of the Sioux and the Crow. So much left unsaid between father and son. We packed up and left there in 71. Montana. My father gave me Montana. And though I am all I'll ever be, comes from this gift he gave me.